John Brent McGhee was a 42-year-old man trying to get his life together despite a troubled marriage. He was last seen in Leachville, Arkansas on July 11, 2024, after his wife had an argument with his mother. He spent a few minutes at a cousin's house and then vanished into oblivion. Strangely, the next day, his wife checked herself into a battered women's shelter and then immediately into a mental health clinic. After being released, she moves in with her BFF, a man her husband once trusted. Why the strange behavior? Why do the scent dogs lose the trail in front of this boyfriend's house? Why does the rumor mill point to hideous things involving these people? And why can't anyone find McGhee? Was he betrayed by the ones closest to him? This case is brought to you by Chaos Rules in Madhouse, Madison County, Missouri. This rural community should be a safe place, but it hides a dark secret. Fredericktown is one of the most dangerous places to live in America. With a crime rate of 31 per 1,000 residents, Fredericktown has one of the highest crime rates compared to all communities of all sizes. I started researching one case sent to me by a desperate grandmother that led me to 15 more. Then I realized this county has had murder, corruption, and chaos since before the Wild West days. This book will start with a lynching by a Fredericktown mob in 1844 and will end up in an explosion. Hold on to your seats when you read this one. You're in for a wild, chaotic ride through rural Missouri. Check out my new book, Madhouse, Madison County, today. Hi guys, welcome to another episode of Chasing Justice on True Crime Tuesday. I'm your host, Sonova Cantrell. On the line, I have two of my favorite co-hosts. I have Cricket Andrews, a fellow victims advocate and crime writer. How are you, Cricket?
I'm good. How's everybody?
I also have my favorite research assistant, Miss Tammy. How are you?
I'm good. How are you guys?
We are here. So today we are talking about this gentleman. His name is, you guys seen his lovely picture? We are talking about John Brent McGhee. Now, he goes by Brent, but his first name is actually John. To set the stage for you, we're talking about Leachville, Arkansas. So we're talking about a rural area. I believe it's Mississippi County, Arkansas. Now, this man is 42 years old. As you heard in the introduction, he was having trouble with his wife at the time. There were things that family and friends found later that kind of proves that he was thinking she may be maybe stepping out on him, that she may be leaving him. He wasn't sure. And you're going to find out that they were staying just after the 4th of July, on July 11th, they were staying at his mom's house for a little bit. And his mom and his wife ended up in an argument. We don't have to get into what it was about, but it was an argument, just basic things. It wasn't anything that anyone thought was serious. Well, she blows out of the house, and Brent leaves a short time later. His mother takes him to his cousin's house, where he stays at his cousin's house for a few minutes, and then he walks off. He does not have a vehicle at this time, so he is walking, but this is standard mode of transportation for him. He is used to walking, so this isn't unusual for him. He was there for about 20 minutes. He walked off and walked into oblivion. Here we are talking, it's been several months now, and nobody knows where he is. Now, you're going to hear in this case, there is a massive rumor mill that is stirring up all kinds of chaos in this case. Now, Brent McGhee had a few certain people that we're going to mention, but like always, we do not necessarily mention names unless they have been officially named as a suspect. That covers my backside and yours as well. But if you need to know these people's information, it is all over the internet. You can find it. You can find it on your own time. But we have a desperate mother. We have a desperate sister who is extremely close to her older brother. and they shared a close birthday. They shared a close bond. He was her, her protector, someone she looked up to, and this man has been taken from her. Now, he was trying to get his life together and trying to get things sorted out with his wife. He wanted to make things work, but everything was miserable, and now he is missing. Now, to make matters worse, you're going to find out that his wife, we're just going to call her ex because she's obviously, that was where they were heading is what it looked like. His ex did some strange things. He was last seen on July 11th, 2024, and the very next day she checks herself into a battered women's shelter. Now, there is no evidence that she was actually battered in any way, shape, or form, but she checked herself into this. Now, after she went through their routines and their programs, then she immediately went from that shelter to a mental health facility. After she's out of the mental health facility, you would think she would be disturbed and upset about her missing husband. She would go to the home that they shared together. Instead, she goes to her BFF's house. Now, this is a man she's known all of her life, and there are suspicions that this was actually her boyfriend on the side. Of course, that is something the rumor mill has put out, but her own actions kind of verify this when she moves in with this man immediately after leaving the mental health facility. So she moves in with him. Now, if all of that isn't strange enough, you'll find out that there was one so-called best friend. So you have a ex, you have a boyfriend, and you have a best friend of Brent's. Now, these three people have been acting suspiciously ever since this man is missing. Now, if you love and care for somebody and you're going through trauma, everyone reacts to grief differently. So yes, there's going to be people act one way and people act another, and everyone's going to be arguing and fighting about how you should act. But these three people don't seem to be bothered by the fact that this man that they have known all of their lives and or loved all of their lives is gone. He has vanished without a trace, and instead you have vicious rumors about the boyfriend being a taxidermist and disposing of Brent's body in hideous ways. You've got the best friend of Brent, who has made outrageous claims about having his eyeballs in a jar, and you have a family who's not getting the support and help that they need. Now, we're going to be talking about law enforcement. We're going to be talking about collecting evidence on your own. We're going to hopefully not ruffle too many feathers, but I am going to tell you both sides are maybe a little bit agitated by the time this is over with, because what we want is evidence coming in that will remain steadfast in court. And so we got to be careful how we collect this evidence. We've got to be careful how it's processed. We've got to be careful how it gets to the crime lab. We're going to tell you stories of the family having to desperately collect evidence on their own. We're going to tell you stories about how that hard-earned evidence has been stored in a locker for way too long until it deteriorates beyond usability. We're going to hear all kinds of stories about that. We do want to, at the beginning, thank those people who are trying to help the family. There are there's a search and rescue team. There's a couple of private investigators. There is, I do believe there is a scent dog team called Dogs of the South. We do want to give a shout out to all of those people that are trying to help, but we do want to also make just a forward out front plea. If you know something, say something. If you're going to make up a boatload of BS just to muddy the water, keep your mouth shut. We don't need any more rumor mills in this case. We need evidence. We need people who know what happens. We don't need anybody in some kind of drug-fueled fantasy making up some BS and telling the family and upsetting them more. Now, you have to realize this family is going through massive amounts of trauma. They have had to go through this realization that this man is most likely not coming back home. Somebody that is a pivotal part of their existence is now been torn from them. And the people that they are depending on to find justice, they're not giving them the evidence that they need. They're not giving them the answers that they need. And so you've got a family that's frustrated and hungry for information. And unfortunately, that makes them vulnerable. You've got a lot of people that come out and they want to take advantage of these people. You've got people that are going to give you information for money. You've got people that are going to give you BS information just because they're sick people that like to terrorize people. And so we're going to try to read through some of the BS. We're not going to publish all of the rumor mill, but we are going to reference a few things, and we're going to talk about this case mainly just because Brent McGhee needs the publicity. Brent McGhee needs the information out there. Now, police are, they say they're active in this case, and I'm going to say, okay, that's great, but we would like them to be more active. We also would like to see maybe a police department that has a little bit more access to more resources join in. I do know that the family has a petition out there, and I have linked that in the video description below. You can sign that petition. Now, I do have something about the petition that I would encourage to maybe be altered slightly, but we want somebody with the resources to be able to come in and investigate this case and bring this man home. But we also want someone that is capable of standing up in court. So we everything you do on a case like this, we really need to keep the court case in the back of your mind. So when you collect the evidence, when you go on the searches, when you run the dogs, we've got to have that done in a specific way, in a manner that can stand up in court. And so it would be nice if the police would do all of those things and get it done in a timely manner so the family isn't having to do this. So that is a basic overview of what we're going to be talking about tonight. And I do encourage everyone to sign the petition. And like I said, I put it in the video description, so it's right there, easy for you guys to find. Make sure and sign that for the family. The more we can kick up a stink around this case, the more we can pressure people into coming forward and talking to police, and the more we can pressure the police to put this case maybe at the front of their caseload, because you have to realize every police department has more cases than they can handle. Now, that doesn't give them an excuse not to do what they're supposed to do, but this may push them into giving this a little bit more priority. So that's where we are tonight. Cricket, I'll start with you. The first thing that I noticed about this case was the massive, overwhelming pile of rumor mill BS. And
Yes.
I have researched almost 500 cases that I have covered, and every case has massive amounts of BS, but this one just seems to be more than usual. Is it just me, or is there more rumor mill in this case than any other?
Yeah, there is a lot. And what I like to do, well, you too, and people have to realize too, you have to look for what you're not seeing that you should be seeing,
Right.
and hear things that you should hear that you're not hearing, and that's all over this case.
Right. Well, and see, this is the thing. We want to all think that we lived in a small, rural, safe place, safe town, and that's never the case. Safety in a small town or in a rural community, it's all a very thin facade, and all it takes is one person with evil intentions to completely destroy that, and that feeling of safety and security has been destroyed for this family. And this is where we're at. We've got a wonderful young man, and I'll throw the picture up again so you can see it. Wonderful young man who is missing, 6'4", 175 pounds. So he's not a tiny guy. He's a good size. He's what we call a corn-fed boy from Texas. That's what we call it, corn-fed boy. So this is somebody that wouldn't have easily been taken care of. So this is something that we need to realize he wasn't 5 foot tall, 100 pounds. He wasn't sickly. He wasn't. He was a strong, healthy man, 6'4", and so somebody had to work together to get this. I do not think, unless it's one person with a gun, that they could have taken someone his size down easily.
Yeah.
So let's talk about, there's so much rumor mills. And I hear on a few different podcasts and things, some of the things that the family have had to hear. And I want everybody that comments in the YouTube videos, of course, I know Tammy and Cricket, they already know the way I feel about these things. But if you're commenting on my YouTube video now or in the replay, be respectful, be kind. I don't care what you think. You have a right to your opinion, but you do not have a right to re-traumatize a victim's family member. So, excuse me, if that's your intent, just get off the channel. That's not what we're here for.
Exactly.
This channel is for victims, family members. I'm a victims advocate first and a crime writer second. So this is if you have anything rude to say, if you have some made up BS to say just because you want to insert yourself into this case, you can back off this channel. You can go give your comments somewhere else because they will be deleted off of mine. I will not allow that. Now, I will tell you that there are times and places where the rumor mill is important. That gives you ideas of persons of interest, that gives you ideas of which direction to go. Sometimes you collect the evidence and it doesn't really make sense, and then the rumor mill can kind of interpret that evidence for you. But when all you have is small town rumors, and then you have people that seem bent on just tormenting this poor family, who tells the sister that they have his eyeballs in a jar?
Yeah,
Now,
that's disgusting to say that.
let me tell you something, okay? It's not the little guys, the little barking dogs, that's the problem, okay? There is something called little dog syndrome that a lot of guys have. And it's like they can't take the fact that they're not big and huge and things. So they have to blow smoke and be big and bad. And I got involved in a lot of that crap when I was dealing with some mobsters. Okay. You've got a lot of Italians that they like to get into arguments on my show. And I told them it's not very attractive when these big, tough guys, supposedly tough guys, start arguing like a bunch of prepubescent girls. And needless to say, they didn't get on my show anymore. But you have some people that will say anything to make themselves look big and bad. So here's the thing. If you really have eyeballs in a jar, you wouldn't be talking about it. See, I think that's a load of BS. Okay? And I'm calling BS right now. If you have eyeballs in this jar, show me. Okay? Because anybody who's truly doing that kind of thing, they don't talk about it. See, the loudmouth in the room isn't the problem. You go and you look in a room full of thugs. The loudmouths aren't the problem. You see the guys hanging in the shadows, not saying a word. Those are the ones you have to worry about. The quiet ones you have to worry about. Okay, so if you're out there blowing smoke in such a hideous, disgusting way, shame on you. Shame on you. You're a disgusting human being if that is what you get pride in and make yourself look big and bad. Shame on you. You should never say that to a victim's family member. And if that's the kind of crap you come up with, I call your BS. Show me. Show me. Because I guarantee you, if that's what you're coming up with, you're not as big and bad as you think you are. Okay? Now, the fact that there are 3 people in this case that are constantly doing things that feed the rumor mill, this is what we need to focus on. We need to stop focusing on there are certain places in the county that are body dumps, and there's certain this and there's certain that. All of that stuff's information that you just take in and you absorb. Okay. You take in all of the information, and then you have to, as an investigator, you have to sort through the piles of trash and find that one nugget of truth that's going to lead you where you need to go. And this is where I find it is so horrible and disgusting that this family's having to do that themselves. We pay law enforcement with our taxes. We pay law enforcement to do these things, so the family don't have to hear this. The family shouldn't have to hear these hideous, disgusting stories. The family shouldn't have to deal with this. But law enforcement doesn't seem to be doing what they need to be doing. And if they are doing something, they're taking a freaking long time. Now, unfortunately, I have done all kinds of cases, and it seems like law enforcement never gets in a hurry. But I will tell you there's a reason for it. Just to play devil's advocate for police for a moment, you need to understand that the police cannot do what a private investigator sometimes can get away with, what locals can sometimes get away with, because police are bound by law, and they have to go through a specific process to legally do what they want to do. Now, you don't want police being able to just barge in your house at any time. They have to get a warrant, and for warrant, they have to have probable cause. Now, in this case, I contend they have probable cause. You have people who said they seen him outside of the boyfriend's house the day he was missing. You have scent dogs that were brought in that the family had to bring in, which isn't their job. Their job is to grieve their loved one. They shouldn't have to do this. They brought in scent dogs, and the scent dogs, they alerted there in front of the boyfriend's house, but they couldn't go on the property because they didn't have a warrant. But they lost the trail just past the house. So it looks like whoever saw him standing in the road may have actually been telling the truth. But then we need a search warrant to take those dogs in. Now, once they step foot into the property, then they could find out, okay, did the dogs lead them to the door? Did the dogs lead them back around behind the house? Did they lead them to a shed? Did they lead them to the woods? You know, we need more information. And the family has done more than their share trying to get the police probable cause. And so here's the thing. You don't want to go ahead and put the scent dogs on the property and ruin the case, because if you go on that property and it's posted no trespassing and they do it anyways, that is not admissible in court. Private investigators, if you get a good one, because there's some that are scams out there, but if you get a good one, they know what the laws are. They know how far they can stretch it. They know how, where the lines of gray end and where the legal lines are. And so we can't put the dogs on the property without the police going ahead and getting a warrant.
And they watch you too. They watch you. When you're doing searches, they watch you. There's always a police officer or a detective nearby, so that if something is found that looks suspicious, we can bag it, but they have to come and look at it.
Right. Well, and see, that's the thing. I talked to someone connected to the case earlier, and they said that there's been probably about 15 searches. None of them were officially with the police. These were volunteer searches. These were family, friends. These were, they did have a couple of different organizations help them in some of the searches, which I was glad about that, because searches can go wrong real easy if things aren't done perfectly. And you need to understand that when you get to court, the defense attorney's job is to find anything and everything they can to tear up the prosecutor's case. And so you want to really, if you can get some assistance, then that's the best way to do it, because we all want Brent to come home, but if you don't get justice in court after you bring him home, you really have defeated your purpose. because you want to get whoever did this to him as well. You want to bring him home and give the family some place that they can put him and they can go to grieve. That he needs a final resting place, a proper one. But you also want to get the guy or girl or the group. You want to get them in court. You want to get that justice. You want to get that, and justice demands it. The family needs it, and so whatever we do on this, we need to be careful because we don't want to destroy anything. And
it needs to be
that's
rock
kind of where
solid.
we want to kind of go with this. Cricket.
Said, yeah, it has to be rock solid.
It does, because the defense attorney is going to destroy it if it's possible.
That's the sad
and this is
part.
where we want to be careful. Yeah. Now, I will tell you that in this case, that where he lived was searched somewhat, and the family, from what I heard before on another podcast, didn't think that it was searched thoroughly, but they think that there was more to search. They also found different things that they thought might be evidence, and they tried to send it in. It was contested. They said it wasn't bone, and other people said it was bone. And then come to find out that evidence sat in an evidence locker for, I believe it was either 5 to 7 weeks that it sat in an evidence locker, and it had deteriorated so bad by the time the crime lab got it that it was no good, and they had to, because evidence doesn't last forever, and that's the problem. I also know that the families had with their private investigator, so they didn't just do it on their own. They did some luminol testing in the house, and they found blood in the house. Now, whether that was from a recent injury that he had on his foot, or whether that was the crime actually happened in the house, we don't know. Unfortunately, this is what's so bad about this. If the police go in there and spray that same location again, they're going to ruin the trajectory of that blood stain. So what happens when you respray a blood stain with luminol? It will run. It will move. It will change the shape and direction of the blood spatter. And so if somebody's trying to do a blood spatter analysis and figure out what angle and this and that, all the Sherlock Holmes stuff that everybody loves to watch on TV, if they try to do that, when you've sprayed it twice, you have changed it, and it makes it almost impossible to do that. And so by the police not being involved, by the police having to go back and redo, they're automatically deteriorating their evidence. So you want to collect the evidence the first time around the right way the first time around. You don't want to have to go back and recollect. And this is what we see a pattern of over and over again in this case. So you have the evidence that was submitted by the family and their private detective, all their people. You've got information submitted by Team Brent, we'll call it that. But then the police, they sit on it so long that it goes bad, or they don't follow through on it. Now you have the ex who avoided taking a polygraph test to begin with, and then she took one eventually, and we have I'm not sure how verified it is, but the rumor mill says she failed it. And so then there it goes. A polygraph test isn't admissible in court for very specific reasons. So taking a polygraph test anyways is kind of a moot point, to honestly. If people really understood the science behind a polygraph test, it's not all that hard to pass one. Because in reality, if you believe the lie that you're telling, your body's not going to physiologically respond the same way. So you can pass those real easy. So it's one of those things where, it's just kind of something to help the police decide who's a person of interest and who's not, is basically
And I
all it is.
question like what the vehicles of the three people.
Right. Okay, so there was
Because
some things about the vehicle too, because his friend had a vehicle crushed that he had just gotten. He had a vehicle crushed like as soon as, I don't know, something happened in the case and he got it crushed. It's like 2 or 3 days after he was reported missing, and he had just
wow.
had it a short time.
Yeah,
So
the
who gets
reason
their
I
car
was
crushed in the first
right.
place?
The reason I was asking that because the cars are very important, like you said.
Absolutely.
That one was crushed. I had another case where the woman took her son to the bus station, a bus stop, came home, and she just disappeared. And what happened was the vehicle backed up to the trailer and threw her in. So nobody saw her after she got to the house.
Yeah.
So a vehicle could have, I don't know the outlay of the house or whatever, but it
Right.
would be very easy for a vehicle to come
Absolutely.
in.
I believe he got it
Mhm.
crushed just weeks later.
Yeah, that's very suspicious.
He got it crushed right after he was reported missing, I believe is what it said. So the deal with the whole crushing of the car is you've got the friend of Brent, you've got we're going to just say so-called boyfriend of his wife, and those three people were supposed to be in Brent's corner. Now, I guess the boyfriend actually gave away the wife at Brent and her wedding. I mean, so they had been family friends, and this is a small rural area where everybody knows everybody. Everybody grows up and knowing each other, and I freaking hate those. I'm like, I don't like people in my business. I'm like, I lived in town, I've lived outside of town, and small town rumor mill gossip is BS. And I'm like, I don't care if I know my neighbor or not. I don't need to know my neighbor. I don't care if they know me, because I grew up in too much of that small rural community where everybody's gossip and everybody knows everybody and all that. And I'm like, all that causes is chaos is in my book. I don't need you in my business, and I don't care about your business,
Yeah,
and
JJ
so
says
but
Brent
that
saved.
yeah, I seen
Brent
it, but
says
that's where we've got to realize not everybody that's talking in the rumor mill actually has anything to say, and we need to realize that people will insert themselves into cases for various reasons.
yes.
A lot of them is because of validation. They want the attention. They want that 15 minutes of fame if they can get on news and talk about something they don't know anything about.
Or
And so this
sway
is
it
this
in
is
a
where
different direction.
right. And some people get this psychotic sense of control when they can transform the narrative any way that they want to. You have to realize not everybody is in your corner, and not everybody is going to tell the truth, and not everybody cares. There's a lot of people that don't give a crap. Brent's JJ says Brent saved my life more than once. Brent, from what I hear, was a very good-hearted person. He was very light-hearted and funny and liked to goof around. And he seemed to be very, for those that were in his corner, he seemed like he would do anything for anybody. And it seems like anytime something like this happens to somebody, it's horrible. But when it happens to someone that seems so good-hearted, it's just devastating. Kim says, hello, thank you for doing this story on Brent. We have not gotten any help from the police, period.
Wow.
Well, see, this is the thing. I always try to not bash the police too much, because you still
Sometimes
need
you have
them.
to give them
And this is,
a
it's
foot
like
in the
you
butt.
still need them to solve the case is the problem. So you have to walk this tightrope where you're like, you're not doing your job, But then you're like, but please go ahead and be nice to us and solve it anyways. So it's like you have this never ending, battle of like, okay, you don't want to completely tick them off because they will not they will just put you on the back of the burner and go on. And Kim says, I'm not bashing. Those are facts. Absolutely. I didn't think you were. But here's my thing. There is a timely manner to do things, and that's not happening in this case. There are chains of command that if you do not have the resources in your police department, there are chains of command that step up higher and higher and higher. You go to the county, then you can go to the state, then you go to the feds, you can go, there's step. And the reason why our structure is that way is for when you get in some kind of mess like this, that you don't have the ability to take care of it. There's always Big Brother looking over your shoulder that you can bump it up to the county or you can bump it up to the state. And that's what the petition is for. We're saying, okay, look, we're not wanting to tick you off or anything, but you obviously don't have the resources needed to push this case through. So why don't you pass it up? And get somebody to come in to assist you. There's so much that you can do. There's so many resources that can come in and assist these smaller police departments. But a lot of times they're so ego driven, they won't ask for help. And here's the thing I said I wanted maybe to change on the petition. They're asking for the FBI to come in. The FBI won't come in. I don't want to break that to you. But I will tell you, I can give you a detailed breakdown on what the FBI requires to come into a case. And the very first one knocks this case out of the water. The very first one is if it qualified as a case that they can take, then they still have to have the local police department ask them to come in. And so that automatically knocks it out of the water. The next thing is you have to have an interstate or international component. So if Brent was taken over state lines, then that would be something that the FBI could come in. If it was a kidnapping of a child under 12, then the FBI can step in. If it's organized crime, terrorism, or espionage, then the FBI will step in. So if they, if it's a foreign national or a politician, they will step in. But all of this, every single bit of it, and what is so devastating is the local police department has to allow them to come in. And so this petition, I want everybody watching this video now and everybody that watches the replay, I want you to sign the petition because we need to kind of force the hand and make them let somebody come in to help because they have the legal right as the police in their jurisdiction. They have the right to push out everybody else. And I will tell you that is the sole reason why the JonBenet Ramsey case is not solved, because Boulder Police Department had never had a case like JonBenet Ramsey. Never had a case. They weren't qualified. They didn't have the resources, and they have constantly pushed the FBI out. They have constantly pushed out the county officials. They constantly pushed out the state officials. They would not allow anyone to come in. And now they're trying to change the law in Colorado to force police departments to let help in, whether they like it or not. And that is where we're at. In this case, we need to force their hands to open the door to assistance, whether they like it or not. Because if we don't, this case is going to be destroyed and we're going to look at another cold case. And that is absolutely what we're all fighting against.
When the police don't do their job right from the get-go, and the family is doing everything they can without police help. But because the police aren't helping, the families are having to do things that might hurt the case. because
Now,
there's not
the
that chain of
sister,
command.
right. The
The
sister
police are
says there is one detective that is working with me, but he did deny asking the state to help. And see, she's got one detective that's working for you. So kudos for the detective that's helping. But this is where somebody needs to be, somebody needs to have enough backbone and step out of their ego. I apologize if you hear something in the background. My little dog likes to sit in his little chair by mommy. So here's the thing. We need somebody to step out of their ego and say, we need help. And we do not want this to be a case where I'm very empathic. So I care. I love everybody. I try to help. I care too much. It makes me vulnerable and makes me a target for jerks, but I believe it takes a stronger person to still care after you've been stabbed in the back than it takes to toughen up. So I care about this case, but I honestly don't want to have to talk about it again. I stepped away from true crime and studied psychology and life coaching for victims' family members because police aren't there to be your counselor. And so I thought, well, maybe I could help with that a little bit. So I stepped away for a couple of years and studied and then came back. And I had 300 archived cases that I've had to bring back. And it's heart-wrenching to have to talk about a case 5-10 years later. And it's still in the exact same spot as when you left it. And I don't want that to happen to Brent's case. And I believe this case right now, if somebody would get on the stick and get on with this and do what needs to be done, I do believe this case can be solved. It's all reality, it's a pretty open and shut case. You've got 3 people who are very suspicious around the missing person. You have people that have come forward, that have told things that they know of these people, their movements and what they're doing, very, very suspicious, which I contend if you are doing that, be extremely, extremely careful. Okay. Because if half of these rumors are true of what happened to this man, you don't want to end up right there next to him. Okay. So be extremely careful. Do it legally. Don't start stalking people because, they're a person of interest, even though you'd like to. We still have to hold back because we don't want any more victims. Okay. We don't want any more missing persons that we're going to have to cover. So keep yourself out of hot water. Okay. But here's the thing. We need the police to invite people in. So I wasn't going to do this case, if you want to know the truth, because it takes a lot to fill up an hour on True Crime Tuesdays. So I thought, well, maybe I could do just a short video by myself on another day of the week. I didn't know if there would be enough content available that we could produce to make an hour-long video. But then I decided I need to do it because on Tuesday nights, I have my biggest audience. And Tuesday nights where we're going to get the most attention. And so I want you guys, even if this isn't as long drawn out of a case as what we normally do, and there's not a big deep dive in this, I want you guys to share this. I want you to sign the petition because there are 3 people around this missing person that should have been interrogated. They should have gotten statements from them. They should have been there. They should have been investigated thoroughly. Their movements should have been tracked. Their phone records should have been tracked by police. Everything. If you have 3 suspicious people around a missing persons, there should have been a police officer trailing all 3 of those people for all of these months until they got the answers they needed. That man should not have been able to crush his car without a police officer stepping in and saying, oh, wait a minute, wait, no, you can't crush that. We got to look at it first.
Exactly.
Okay. But they did not do that. So now you have a crushed car in a drunk yard. There, you might be able to tear apart that tin can and find some minute something or other. But for the most part, that evidence has been destroyed. Okay, so that evidence is most likely gone. It's not available anymore. So we have that evidence. Then you have the luminol evidence. Now, I do know, I did catch that the family hadn't gone through the whole house and done luminol. They just did one room. But here again, if the police don't get on the stick and do the luminol testing, to redo the luminol testing in the same room that the family did, it's already going to be slightly degraded. So how long are these people going to sit on their thumbs and wait? The family has already done massive amounts of investigation. And yet, here's the problem. They can investigate for the next 1,000 years, but they can't close the case. They can find Brent and bring him home. They can give him a proper burial, but they can't close the case. They cannot finish this. The only person that can finish this has a badge, and we need the badge to wake up. And that's where we're at right now. I've got a whole ton of comments. Cricket, say something while I look through these comments.
Yeah, I believe that this case could have been solved right from the beginning. Because it's only those 3 people, and with all cases, it's always said that the guilty person is spoken to within the first 48 hours.
Yeah.
And since the police slacked on their job, now the family's having to do it. And thank God that they have a private investigator. But they shouldn't have to do that.
Again, the private investigator can't close it.
Exactly.
Again, the private, he can't close it. He can do everything. He can carry them up to a certain point, but we still need a badge.
The police,
and the private investigator doesn't have it. He can only do so much. I mean, he can follow them all the way into court and give his testimony and give his evidence, but he can't finish it either. And that's what's so devastating in this case. He can't finish it either.
Yeah, we need these people to slip up and somebody, stop being quiet.
Yeah. But be quiet if you're making up crap.
Well, yeah, but I mean, if you know something.
If you know something, though, even if it's just a tiny detail, tell it. Okay, so this one says, people will talk about this case till it gets solved. Second Judicial Court in Arkansas is an area of communities. Northeast Arkansas, Leachville is a strong little community. They absolutely will not allow this case to go cold. Robin Walker. Absolutely. And see, this is the thing. Small towns can be devastating, but when they rally, they can be powerful. And that's what we need to do. We need to rally that small town rumor mill. We need to rally that grassroots network. We need to rally them 14 Brent, instead of all of this commotion this way, that way, tugging here, and some people talking, not people talking, people that don't know nothing, making up crap. We need to bring the community together, and that grassroots network is stronger than anything else. And so we definitely need that. Kim says the police do have his GPS from that day. That is fabulous. And I'm assuming that was probably collected by family members and friends and Team Brent. I'm sure he's not the only case in this county of Arkansas, but whoever the chief of police is needs to be replaced. I see, this is the thing. There are so many unsolved cases that a lot of times the cold case unit of a rural community is actually one retired guy trying to do this in his off time, and we need more qualified law enforcement to do these things. And I contend they probably have more cases. They have all these things. But if this was their brother, if this was their dad, if this was their son, if this was their family member, I guarantee you that case file would be on the top of everyone's desk and nobody would be able to ignore it. And so that's what we're calling for. We're calling for people to step into this family's shoes a little bit and say, what would I do if this was my brother? What would I do if this was my best friend? And this is what really disturbs me. These 3 people around these three people around Brent, why aren't they coming forward and saying, hey, no, I was at so-and-so's house, I have an alibi, or hey, no, I was working that day, or hey, no, it's not me. Why aren't they out there searching? Why aren't they trying to clear their name? Why are they just letting it ride? See, to me, that in itself is suspicious, don't you think, Cricket?
Yes, very. Because, I mean, any search that I've been out on, there's family out there.
Robin says the little sister going to his house and having to do a blood spatter test did it for me. Nobody should have to investigate their own loved one's case. That's what gets me about this case. When you hear some disgusting things that they said they did to this poor man, when you see the sister having to do luminol tests, when you go and you see all this crap, it infuriates me. And it should infuriate the authorities to say, you don't tell the sister this bull crap. You know, I don't know. I miss the 80s sometimes, because used to, if you said BS to somebody, you'd get punched in the face for it. And I'm like, sometimes I miss that. You know, I'm like, okay, you got to tone down the violence, Sonora. But I was like, sometimes people need to get smacked in the face, because I'm like, if you're going to tell a sister that, you deserve to get smacked in the face. You deserve to be missing a few teeth by the time I'm done with you, you know, because there is no good reason that crap should ever go on. And this is what upsets me about law enforcement. When the law enforcement aren't pushing forward at a decent speed and doing what they're doing, they, in their own way, are re-traumatizing the victims too. See, this is what upsets me. The police are re-traumatizing the victim's family. When the victim's family has to call and cry and plead and beg for them to do their job that they're paid to do, and they don't, when the victim's family member has to go and do their own testing and find what they think is bone fragments, do you know what that did to her insides? Think about that. You find bone fragments. They might be chicken bones. You don't know unless you're qualified to look at those things. But all you can see is this deep, hideous hole in your soul thinking, holy crap, what am I holding? Is this him? So to me, when law enforcement allow that to go on, they are culpable in re-traumatizing the victim's family members.
Yeah, and also
because you are tearing a hole through somebody that's already broken.
Yeah, and also by them not doing their job and the families having to do it, it doesn't go to court because you know what I mean? Because the cops didn't do their job, the families have to do it, and they don't know everything. So, okay, well, you don't have this, and this. We can't take it to court. It's the police that should be doing that stuff.
Yep. The family should never have to hear these things.
No.
You know, the family used to, and it's not everywhere. And like I said, I'm not police bashing, because there are a lot of good cops out there. There are a lot of good cops that have just absolutely given their entire existence for cases. So we're not doing an all across the board anti-police type thing here. We are simply talking about a small rural police department that needs to get on the stick and get this done before all of the evidence is destroyed, before all of the evidence is gone, before the people disappear. How long do you think these three people are going to hang around? You know, there's nothing stopping these three people from leaving the area, changing their names and vanishing into the distance. There's nothing stopping them from that. And so this is where and I've said this several times, but I keep getting more people signing on randomly. So I've said this probably 3 or 4 times. There's a petition in the video description. I need you to sign it. Okay. That petition is to try to convince the local police department to allow in a bigger police force that has more resources to help solve the case. Okay. Okay. So let's see. Laura says, I would flip mountains if this was my brother. God grant him justice and peace. I will follow this case until I hear it solved. I never knew Brent, but his story has touched me, and he looked like such a beautiful soul. Yes, he does. Brianna says, no family should have to collect their own evidence and take their own pictures. The PI didn't even get a sample of the blood on the wall and send it off, nor did anyone else. I don't know about that part. You'll have to verify that with somebody that is directly connected to the case, a family member or Christy Hunter. She seems to be kind of advocating. I don't know if they got a sample off the wall or not. I don't know. I do know that a lot of things that they have collected either never got to the lab or they didn't get to the lab in a timely manner, and they were so degraded that they couldn't get results from it. Let's see. That's the thing. They're procrastinating enough makes it very suspicious, wondering about involvement. And see, this is the thing. Robin says they're all on meth. That's why. That's unfortunately, that's true in several cases. How much circumstantial evidence, how much circumstantial evidence is enough for warrants? That's the next thing. You've got 3 suspicious people. You've got a witness who has placed him in front of the boyfriend's house. You have, and police, I do believe, talked to her. So you have a witness who placed him in front of the house. You have scent dogs who placed him in front of the house. You also have very suspicious behavior by those people. You have rumor mills around town. You have blood evidence that you've ignored. You have bone fragments that you have ignored. You have all of this circumstantial evidence. You have a guy who randomly just crushes his car right after this happens. You have a wife who, it's very odd that you go into a domestic violence facility for women, and where's the records for that?
Exactly.
Did she have any visible anything on her? We don't know because the police haven't done anything with that. But to me, it's very odd. The day after her husband goes missing, instead of going into this panic of where's my husband? Where's this man that I love? Where's this man I promised to spend the rest of my life with? Where is this man? Where is my husband? Instead of losing her, everything on that, I can actually see the mental health facility. I can see that. I mean, having a nervous breakdown because you lost the love of your life and ended up in a mental health facility. I can see that. That sounds legitimate. Throwing yourself the day after he's last seen, throwing yourself into a random women's shelter, to me sounds like you're trying to establish a narrative that's not necessarily true.
Yeah.
And that, to me, you go from there, and then you go to the mental health, and then you go to your boyfriend's house instead of going home.
Yeah. And
why didn't you go get your butt at the house?
There's no record of prior domestic violence, or right there, police should be on that. Why is she doing this? We've never had any reports. Let's look into her.
Absolutely. She was just trying to create a narrative. She was trying to control the narrative and try to play the victim card. And then what did she think? Did she think that if she came out publicly as this big victim, this big abused wife, that nobody was going to look for her husband? Was that her game? Because technically, if he was an abuser and he was hurting her and she ended up in a domestic violence situation and she ended up in a women's retreat for victims, if that was the case, then the police definitely needed to look for him. So I'm trying to figure out how this narrative was going to help her. The only thing I can think of is while she's in there, they can't interrogate her. That's the only thing I can think
Right.
of. Let's see. I did get some clarification from Christy. Christy says they did collect places that glowed. So there was a comment earlier about them. Did they collect the the luminol that they sprayed? If they found a blood sample, did they collect some of that? Christy said they did collect a few of those places, but they sat in the evidence locker so long that when by the time the crime lab got them, they were so deteriorated they couldn't get any
Oh.
results from them. So that, yes, they did. Laura says she did that to make up an alibi. Absolutely. Kim says we have flipped mountains. We have searched, turned over evidence, and lots of it only to be told they're lost. They're going to take it to a crime lab, but it never gets there. Says they're waiting for more evidence to be collected, or it just looks like melted plastic. 3 medical experts, including a doctor, said that it was bone. This is just the tip of the iceberg. It's ridiculous. Yes, and see, that's what I said at the very beginning of this. We're not going to get into all of the rumor mill because there's so much of it. We'll be here for 3 hours. And I contend that some of the rumor mill is legitimate and necessary, and we should hear about it. A lot of the rumor mill is BS, people trying to insert themselves or people trying to sound big and bad. And so here's where we are. We're trying to keep this as clean and neat as possible, because what I wanted to create today is a good, clean video with evidence, with the facts that we have that the family can share. Because when we go off on a tangent and go off on the rumor mill, all it does is it distracts from what we know. What we know, this man had gone to his mother's with his wife. His wife and his mother got into an argument. His wife left in a snit. His mother ended up taking him later to his cousin's house. He stayed at his cousin's house for a short time, and then he left, and he left on foot because he didn't have a car. So we know that. We also have a witness that placed him. They said they saw him out in the street in front of his wife's boyfriend's house. Okay. We also know that the scent dogs lose their trail right there. That's the evidence that we have. We also know that his best friend has been acting suspicious and has been saying some horrible things around town. We also know that this boyfriend of his wife has his a taxidermist, and that there's rumors of all kinds of horrible, gruesome ways that he has disposed of Brent. And we also have this very suspicious behavior of his actual wife, who never reported him missing, who went 54 days, I believe, without even saying anything online or anything. And then she reached out to Brent's children from another relationship to try to validate herself. Well, I had to go here for mental health issues. Why are you reaching out to his kids? They're not even your kids. Basically, she wanted to continue this narrative, so she had to have some way to put it online. So now she has on Facebook, she has her side of the story. That's the reason why she reached out to children that aren't even hers. Okay, I'm off of my rant. I get so many comments here.
But it is sad, and he's a big guy. It would be more than one person to do anything to him.
They would need more than one person or a gun.
Yeah.
But see, here's the thing. We need a police department with education. We need a police department with resources. We need a police department with empathy. Because in all reality, all of the things we've said, they have an hour and 3 minutes video so far that is chocked full of enough circumstantial evidence to get a warrant. All you need is a judge to say, hey, this is BS. Sign on the dotted line, and they can go get the evidence that's needed that will close this case. See, this case is so obvious what's gone on.
Yep. And
This
yet there's cases where there's less evidence and they're sitting in prison for years.
Well, do you know how many women have manipulated men around them to do something to their significant other because they're being abused? Do you know how many cases that happens? Women can manipulate men around them to defend them. How many cases of that happen? I mean, this is such an obvious thing.
Yes.
Christy says, "Sorry, Sonova, you have a whole county mad." And that's okay. I've already got a county in Tennessee that hates my freaking guts because I won't discredit a dead guy. So go ahead, add them to the list. I'm to the point. I'm tired. I'm freaking tired. I was like, I do my best to research everything. I do my best to try to back up everything I say. I do my best to be honest and sincere and empathetic. And I'm still getting crap from everybody from every angle because of I won't discredit a dead sheriff. I won't do it. And so here's the thing. I'm like, now I've got another county hating my guts. Great.
Well,
if it solves the case, then so be it.
If somebody doesn't hate you, then
so
if somebody doesn't hate you, then you're not doing a good job. So you're doing a great job.
I don't want anyone to hate me, and I don't want anyone to be mad, and I don't want anyone to be angry at anyone. But in all reality, it's time for us to stop being so soft. It's time for us to stand up for the truth. It's time for us to require our officials to stand up. And if they don't have enough backbone to do their job, then they need to turn in their badge and go to work somewhere else. And this is the thing. They need to bring somebody in to help them. So I am again, probably the 5th time, sign the petition. There's a petition in the video description. If you're watching it live or if you're watching the replay, sign the petition. The petition is the family trying to get enough attention and trying to force the police department's hand and try to get them to open their doors to assistance. Because it doesn't matter who wants to step into this case. If the police block the door, nobody can get in. So we need you today to sign the petition, share the video, and anything you see about Brent. So if it's a missing persons poster, if it's just a Facebook post, whatever, share it. I'm not one of those that just say share my content and nobody else's. Share everybody's. Get in there and do your part, because this is the thing. We're Americans, and we're way too divided. We're way too divided. They want to divide us over every stupid thing under the sun. But we're one powerful source. We're one powerful unit. And if they can keep us fighting between each other, then we will not accomplish our goals. And they know that. So we need to unite as red-blooded Americans and realize we're all the same. There's any little thing could be different in our lives, and we could end up in the same boat. You get one person in your life that has evil intentions, and they can destroy you. It doesn't matter how much money you have, what color you are, what your gender is, what your preference is, what your religious preference is. It doesn't matter. One person with bad intentions can destroy you. And you, as people in my audience, I believe are intelligent enough and empathetic enough to know that we need to care about each other, because we're all the same. We're all the same. And there is nothing saying that this couldn't happen to your family. There's nothing saying that this couldn't happen to your brother, your loved one. And so share it as if it is your loved one. Kimberly Lotz just signed on. Kimberly Lotz has a case of her own. Her grandson, Durante, out of Madison County, is a case we just talked about. Kimberly, this case is Leachville, Arkansas, Mississippi County, Arkansas. Okay. Somebody said, call your local state representative. Absolutely. Absolutely. Call. If you have contacts with news media, if you have contacts with, anybody that has any kind of platform, share it, talk to people, because we need to understand that. You want to think, okay, well, we brought up Kimberly, her grandson's cases in Madison County. Well, there's been people that have said in Madison County, well, the druggies will take care of themselves. And I'm sitting here going, what? Here's the thing. There are people that are homeless that used to be doctors, that used to be lawyers, that used to be, everybody under the sun. One thing, one mistake can get them addicted to pain pills and get them to living on the street. It can happen to anybody. So don't be such a judgmental sack of crap and say, well, this person is in a different, level of society and they're not important. Everybody is important. Okay.
Keep blowing up the
Kim
phones,
Brady says
Kim.
we've contacted the news with no results. Kim, send me a messenger message on Messenger, Facebook. There is a specific format for news releases. If you haven't sent a news release out, like a mass news release, and you need help with that, you can message me and I'll show you how to do that. I have a template. If that will help you, message me. Somebody message me that's connected. If you've already done that, then no big deal. But if you can send out a mass news release in the proper format using the right channels, a lot of times they will pay more attention than if you just contact them individually. Only a good investigative journalist will take on law enforcement. I agree. But they can still raise awareness about a case. So Second Judicial Circuit, Northeast Arkansas is generationally corrupt. I'm not going to talk about Arkansas because I have had so much bad experiences in Arkansas. I don't even like going to the state. File complaints with internal affairs in Little Rock or the Civilian Oversight Board. Good idea. Yes, we have 2021. You since 2022. Okay. All right. Girls, is there anything else you'd like to say? We have gone over our hour, which is what we normally shut all this off at. But I want to make sure and get everybody a moment to finish their comments in the live chat. I love to see those. I like to keep everyone involved in the process of these video making. So, Cricket, do you have any final thoughts on this case?
Just keep fighting. Don't give up. Keep hope.
Absolutely. There's nothing to give up to,
No.
You get in some hugely traumatic event like this and you like just want to give up, but you're like, how? You can't give up. There's nothing to give up to. He's still not home. Won't fix anything. There's you can't give up. There's no choice. So what we have to do as fellow Americans, we have to hedge in the gap and hold up the family while they're charging forward. We don't need to get in their way. We don't need to get in front of them, but we need to come alongside and behind and hold them together. We need to hold them up as they charge forward, and we need to run with them. Okay, that's what we do. That's what we have to do because they can't quit. They don't have a choice. They don't want to do this. They don't want to have to fight no more. They don't want to have to cry no more. They don't want to have to deal with this. The only way you can help without hindering is come alongside and support. Hold them together, hold them up while they run and run with them. And that's what we do here at Sonova Inc. Publishing. We try to run with you as far as we can. And like I said, I don't have a badge, so I can only run so far with you. But I will run as hard as I can right there with you. Kimberly says, never give up. It's not an option. No, it's not an option because there's nothing to give up to. Okay. All right. They have shared a hashtag justice for Brent several times. I don't know if that's the hashtag that they're using, or if you need to put his last name on there, Justice for Brent McGhee. I don't know. But if they have hashtags, share them. If they have pictures, share them. Share this video. Sign the petition. We need this. Okay, guys. I'm about ready to sign off. Girls, do you have anything else to say?
Nope. Just stay strong.
Miss T, I haven't heard anything from you.
I think you covered it. I think you covered it. I was going to ask your advice for families in this situation, but it sounds like it's been covered with, them trying to contact the media, them starting a petition, doing what investigating they could do. I don't know of anything else they could do.
The only other thing I'd suggest is to find a trauma coach. Find someone who is qualified trauma therapist, a trauma life coach. Find a therapist. Find someone to talk to that is qualified to talk to, because no matter how strong you are, you need help. And you need someone who is qualified to help you with the emotional roller coaster that goes along with these things. And so find a support network, but find a certified support network as well. Okay? All right, guys. I'm going to sign off for tonight. I love you all. Thank you guys for signing on. Don't forget Brent McGhee. Share this everywhere. And I will see you guys next Tuesday for another Chasing Justice episode. Today's episode is brought to you by Bones Coffee Company. You can forget about boring coffee when you drink Bones Coffee. Not only do they offer a variety of flavors such as strawberry cheesecake and maple bacon, they are a family-owned company that puts great detail not only in their coffee, but in the artwork that comes on each individual bag. Bones Coffee has a coffee club that will deliver your favorite coffee to your door every month. If that wasn't enough, they also have some amazing swag to offer. Check out Bones Coffee Company today. I'll have my affiliate links in the